Hi, friends. Today we are re releasing episode 15, part 1, about the Hatfields and the McCoys. This is one that I, Taylor from Doomed to Fail, did earlier, or I guess last year in 2023. It's a classic, fun story, and I hope that most of our stories are that. This is about the family feud in Appalachia, and I say fun because it's wild and a lot of people died, and it is a glimpse into a life that a lot of us, I don't know, will never live. Unless you're making moonshine in your backyard and shooting at your neighbors, which I don't know, you could be. I don't know your life. Anyway, if you have any questions or want to suggest something that we can cover, feuds are fun, riots are fun, explosions are fun. Let us know. doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Thank you.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Okay, Taylor, what's your banter for the week?
Oh God. No, well, I told you I just woke up, but I did do all my work, my outline yesterday because yesterday was a day off, because the New York Stock Exchange is closed on Good Friday, and it was awesome. It was the best. I wish I had every Friday off.
Are
I went to,
you a stockbroker now, and I don't know this?
I am. It's because I'm a stockbroker. No, I work at a fintech company of ours.
I see.
So, but so I went to a little coffee shop in town and I wrote my outline. It was the first nice day that I've seen in so freaking long. So it was really nice.
That's awesome. That sounds like a
Yeah.
fun way to do it.
Yeah. And then I did a bunch of like errands. Today's Miles's birthday party. So I bought some stuff for that. And then we have Easter on Sunday. So I had to buy all that shit. Yeah.
Is it actually his birthday today?
No, it was on Tuesday.
Got it. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
My banter for the week. Man, my brain's working a little bit slow today. Had one of those nights last night.
I went to bed really early, so I don't know what my problem is.
I went to bed really late. That's my
No,
problem.
Yeah, I was like, forget it, I'm going to bed really early, and so I just went to bed at like 9:30, and it was lovely.
Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was not the night I had. I'm probably gonna repeat it more tonight, so it is what it is. That's the best I got.
You do you. You live your life. Your free, child-free life in a big city.
Someone told me that it's Easter, which I
It is.
totally forgot that it was, and I put this on, like not even knowing that, and
Is it
so
an upside down cross?
yeah, I was like, wow, how weird. Because I've worn this like maybe once
That's so funny.
ever, and I put it on, and somebody was like, oh yeah, it's Easter, and I was like, oh shit, what a weird time that I picked to wear
It's a
this
sign from heaven.
from
I know.
heaven.
Well, my family, this makes my mom annoyed, but we always say, "Can't wait to see if Jesus sees his shadow on Sunday." 6 more weeks of winter.
She's not a
Not like
blasphemer.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
let's go ahead and introduce the show. What's my tagline gonna be? Hold on. Yeah, okay, I got it.
All right.
Welcome to Doomed to Fail, the podcast where we keep intermittently switching off who's the most tired person, and today I'm winning.
Woohoo.
I'm Forrest. I'm joined here by my co-host Taylor. Taylor, how you doing?
I am good. I'm up. I think I've been up for like a solid 5 minutes, so now I'm starting to feel it. I can see the sun. I had half a can of Diet Coke. So yeah.
Isn't it weird? Like, I used to do this thing where because it's so obvious whenever I wake up and I go straight into a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And there are some times when those Zoom calls are happening at like noon, so I have no justifiable reason for having just woken up, and I'll just like sit in my room and just like clear my throat over and over again and shout and then whisper and try to get my voice to modulate enough so that it doesn't sound like I literally just woke up.
I've been up for hours. Yeah.
You sound just like it too. But yeah, so we're gonna be covering our red flag relationships. One is historical, one is true crimey. Taylor, is you go this week?
Yes.
Okay, I never remember, and you always keep me on the straight and narrow. So
Me?
why don't you introduce your drink, and then you can say, well, actually, should I do mine
You
first?
go first. Yeah, and then I'll go.
So mine's gonna be gutter and sewer water because the people that we're covering are just gutter trash people that probably should have just been killed with a rock as children.
Jesus.
So yeah, that's That's what I'm drinking. What about you?
Oh, okay. Well, that's really funny. Okay, this week I'll go right into my story. We're drinking apple whiskey distilled by a very dirty man in a very dirty shack in the middle of the woods.
But it's
So,
so is apple whiskey that is flavored with apples, or is that
no, I think it's just like moonshine. Like it's like
ah
whatever booze you can get out of doing that.
got it. Okay, I've never
I
heard of it
think
called apple whiskey though.
I think today you could probably get apple whiskey. Like I got like a peanut butter flavored whiskey one time. Like I think you could get that
Was
now.
that Screwball?
I don't know, maybe.
It
Don't touch
was.
your drink.
It is disgusting. So you know how much I like my bourbon. I bought a bottle of Screwball when I first moved to Austin. I had that thing for like 2.5 years. I couldn't get through it. It was just so disgusting.
I don't remember what it tasted like, but I remember it existed.
Yeah,
It's probably gross.
not a fan.
Okay, so I want you to try to guess as far as what we're going to talk about. And we're going to get there because I'm going to do the second and maybe last installment of my weekly segment, which is called "I Already Have Children. I Will Have No More." Here are some names I forgot to consider when was having them, and I give them to you. You're welcome. It's a long segment name, but this is episode 2 of that. So I'm going to give you some names, and then you tell me if you know who I'm talking about.
Okay,
Okay,
love this.
Cap. I'm just going to keep going, and then you let me know. Johnsy, Squirrel Hunting Sam, Skunk Hair, Cotton Tap, Bad Frank, and Devil Ants.
It all sounds like frontiersmen in Texas.
Pretty close. We're talking Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh, so
We're on,
good.
we're on the border of Kentucky and West Virginia.
So good. Okay.
Yeah. So super excited. I did a bunch of research. I read the book Feud. I read like half of it, and then I started over because I watched the Hatfield and McCoys miniseries on Netflix, and then I had to like go back and like reread the book because then I could kind of like know who it was talking about. And I swear last week it wasn't available, but then all of a sudden it was. Like the miniseries is on Netflix. It stars Kevin Costner as himself / Devil Ants. It's kind of like just Kevin Costner being Kevin Costner, and Bill Paxton, R.I.P., as Randall McCoy. So
Was it
it's
good?
great. Yeah, yeah. It's a 3-episode series, and it's very fun.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah, yeah. It also ties back to my other stories in different ways. So one is that the book Feud that I read. It opens up with the author talking about how JFK Jr. wanted to do a big story about the Hatfields and McCoys in George magazine because he was really interested in doing more like American history stuff in his magazine, but he died, so they didn't get to do it.
It's a
And then
shame.
I know, same. Don't get into a plane with a Kennedy. And then number 2, Eleanor Roosevelt was very personally invested in this community in Appalachia, in this like area, and she made a community called Arthurdale, which was like a place where they like built houses for people, gave them skills, and she was able to like help them kind of figure themselves out. It was pretty good. It was some parts of it were segregated, which is great, but it was still like a good effort by ER. So she spent time in there too. Also, my algorithm is hilarious because all the articles I get and like my pop-up news are like, now we know what Cleopatra smells like, and we found Anne Boleyn's necklace, and I'm like, oh my god, my algorithm is like out of control right now. I'm gonna blow my nose. Can you hold, please?
Yes. Taylor's off camera blowing her nose. I don't know if I'm gonna leave this part in or edit it out, but just so y'all should know.
Okay, I feel less sniffy. I'm back.
Perfect.
All right. So anyway, the story unfolds on the banks of the Tug River. The Tug River separates Kentucky and West Virginia. This land is very, very rough. It's scary, but it's not like Eastern Massachusetts scary. It's still just like it's like very woodsy. There's a podcast that I really like called The Old Gods of Appalachia, and it's like about telling stories of like earthy gods and witches and things in this area. So it's pretty fun if you ever want to listen to something cool.
Have you ever been to Kentucky or West Virginia?
No.
I've done Kentucky before, and it is it's
Well, I've been to
really
Louisville. Louisville. It's true.
yeah, that counts. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like the countryside. Like
No.
it is it's incredible. It's beautiful for one,
Yeah.
but then it's the juxtaposition of that is abject poverty, which is really strange to see in a place that is that rich in natural resources. Like it's just
Mhm.
you would think it'd be like a tourist hotspot, but I guess it's not because it's just like there's no like cottages to go sleep in, or like it
Yeah,
just doesn't have the ambiance of like a Vermont, let's say.
it's true.
But it's
And
beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's like the Appalachian Trail. It's like really beautiful and the whole area is beautiful. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit more about it. I also listened to some banjo music on Spotify to get in the mood. And by the time I was writing this, someone was doing Taylor Swift's Antihero in banjo version. It was great. So it was fun. The Native Americans didn't really live in this area. They used it for hunting. There's a lot of like bears and deer and animals and things that live there. The Tug River itself is not like the Mississippi. It's like pretty small. It's something you could like swim across. It's not like a huge river that divides Kentucky and West Virginia. And I'll share a map when I'm doing the socials, but everything in the story is within like 2 miles of each other. Like it's all very close. Everyone like, lives really close to each other, but they live in different states because they live on different sides of the tug.
Right.
So I looked at the demographics in the area today that you're talking about. It obviously isn't great. It's not like the worst in the country. There's a lot of people below the poverty line everywhere. It's like small town stuff. According to arc.gov, the high school diploma rate is approaching the national average. They're at 87%, but the bachelor's degree rate is still really low at 25%. So people are like getting out of high school, but not really leaving and going to college.
Makes sense.
There's a Diane Sawyer's 60 Minutes that came out in 2009. And I remember my coworker watching it and being like, it was crazy. I couldn't watch all of it, but I could find parts of it on YouTube. It was called Hidden America. And two stories that stood out. There was this poor girl, and everybody, like, nobody has teeth. Like, everyone's like really poor. And one girl was like, we're not like other people. We can't afford food after food after food because they like barely had any food. It's pretty sad. There was a guy who was a football player, and he had potential, and so he got like a little scholarship to college, and they were focusing on him. And then in the middle of his interview, things go crazy because they find his stepbrother sleeping with his underage stepsister, and everyone is like, "Yeah, it's not great because they're blood." Diane Sawyer's at your house. You can't like skip this today, you know?
Have you ever seen the Mark Leda project that he calls Soft White Underbelly on YouTube?
Mm-mm.
It's really interesting. Like he interviews, I mean, it's basically what it sounds like, the soft white underbelly. It's like drug addicts, prostitutes,
Mm-hmm.
people like that. But there's one part of it that he turned into a series because he found the subject so fascinating, and he went to West Virginia and basically met this family that all lives in this shack.
Yes.
And apparently, I went down a rabbit hole on Reddit on this. Apparently, they're very, very inbred. So all the
Mm-hmm.
siblings were just having sex with each other. But the way the group that was currently alive came about was because there was two like a male and female set of twins,
Mm-hmm.
and they were direct first cousins, and they intermarried, and so it basically just double tripled everything down
Yeah. Oh
the next
no.
generation over. But it's really fascinating. I mean, you just feel bad for them, right? Like you look at people like that, and it's like they had no hope, right? Like there was
Yeah.
no, I mean, they're
I,
living in a shack in the middle
I
of nowhere.
think I saw that recently on the news because my new algorithm is crazy. But yeah, they had them like one of the men like couldn't even talk. He like kind of barked like a
Just
dog.
barked, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, super sad. Like it also it's like that X-Files episode. Do you remember that one? Where the mom and it has all these like, inbred kids and the mom is like not a full body, but they do all these bad things and they have to like get away and it's like a really good X-Files episode. I'll find
I'm gonna admit something to you that I've never told you before.
it. Don't you
I've never watched X Files.
dare. All
Yeah.
right, well, you got stuff to do today. Um, cool. Well, I'll give you a list of good ones. It's so good. I think I've watched all of it twice. Yeah, it's great.
Give me like a
Uh,
hit list because I'm gonna be on a lot of planes for the next
I
like
will.
2 weeks. Okay.
There's one that our friend Laura is in. I'll give you that one. That's a good one.
Wait, Laura Harris?
Hmm.
No way. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
she's little. She's like a little girl, but it's cute.
Yeah.
Cool. I also watched, oh, a long time ago. So my friends and I had a website called Pop 10 that was like top 10 lists of stuff. I don't know. It was like 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And someone sent us a DVD. Like they would like send us things. So I got a DVD called The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia, which is about a family with last names White. It's produced by Johnny Knoxville. And it talks about like a family that similarly is like opioids and drugs and just living in that area.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like two different versions of sadness. One, they're not inbred to the point where they can't communicate or walk or
Right.
anything, but they're also like horrible drug addicts that can't
Yeah.
help themselves.
Yeah. It's real sad. So yeah, two things to highlight before we start. The first is obviously incest. We just talked about it a little bit. When I was reading this book, this was the first time I've heard the word double first cousin, and I was like, "Oh my God, what does that mean?" But that can be not terrible if you do that the right way. Like if you married my sister and I married your brother and we all had kids, they'd be double first cousins. If they're not
No, no,
related,
no. The next generation is a problem. So what I mentioned earlier with the two sets of twins having sex, it's not like it's bad at that level, but it's doubly worse when their children have sex with each other. You see what I'm saying?
no. But I was saying there's nobody related is having sex right now. You're just double first cousins
Oh, okay.
because you have like you only have like one set of grandparents as cousins. You know how like your cousins have other grandparents that
Right.
like so you don't have those. You only have like the grandparents, but you're not sleeping with your sister or anything. It just happens to be that your dad is like related to your uncle.
I really
Oh,
love that all it took was for us to get into like redneck incest to start going down a genealogy map and
I
actually learning
know,
this stuff.
for real. We'll do a thing. But I also want to say that like we've definitely brushed off a lot of cousin and sibling marrying when we're talking about like queens and kings and pharaohs and emperors. So like
Because it's not as gross. I don't know why, but the
why?
fact that I don't know, but it's like when you do it in a shack, it's different than when doing it in a castle, isn't it?
I guess no one smells good while doing it. I think that's a good thing
Ugh,
to put
God,
through.
yeah, just
And then also we talk about guns and state for the record, fuck your guns. There's a lot of guns in this story. It's right after the Civil War. We'll talk about some dates, but they're like homemade guns. It's like lead bullets and gunpowder, and a lot of people get shot and live. Like a lot of people. Like a lot of people was like, oh, he shot me. Like it's fine. You're either gonna die of infection or maybe something gets amputated. It's not like they're not shooting each other with like machine guns. There's no AR-15 in this story. They're like homemade lead bullet guns. So I also know that I promised to talk about stereotypes today. So PBS has a documentary that you cannot watch all of, no matter how hard you try. But in the intro to it, they talk about industrialization, the old versus the new. So like this story of the Hatfields and McCoys in the late 1800s when it was happening, it was in the New York Times. Like people were watching it, and like it was city folks watching this story, judging them, calling them hillbillies, which like sure, the
literally
hillbillies
what
was
I
a
what I just
yeah,
said.
but it was like national news. So it was what it was doing was inadvertently making the Hatfields and McCoys the stereotypes of the American hillbilly. Whether or not like there's other stories, other people, because it was so popular. And so the question that the PBS documentary that I'm unable to finish poses is, did industrialization and post-Civil War Reconstruction push rural people into this other, and we've been separated since then, like especially now? So like how much did, the like eyes on this story from the city and even like from big cities in Kentucky, they would look down at these folks and listen to this story. So
It's weird. Like I kind of look at it as like a badass. It's so old American frontiers living. It's
yeah,
just like because I don't know enough about it to like say anything pithy, but I would say that like they really did fuck each other up. Like they
yes,
shot each other. They like killed their relatives, and it's just like I don't know. There's something weirdly charming about like they're like their own military, like their
yes,
own army, their own
absolutely.
nation states.
Yeah. And then also, yeah, because I'm going to talk about violence. There's a lot of violence. These are like very fiercely loyal and stubborn people. There's a theory that the McCoys had a disease called von Hippel-Lindau disease. It's not a theory because descendants have it. So like people on the McCoy family do have it, and it can make you really short-tempered. So that could have escalated it on the McCoy side at least. That they had like a disease that made them more short-tempered, but they're exceptionally short-tempered. Like crazy things happened. Okay, so for years, the Hatfields and McCoys lived on the Tug River Valley. They sort of lived together, like just like neighbors. They did intermarry a little bit, like not incest intermarry, but like family intermarry. So people could be both a McCoy and a Hatfield, and they lived in the same community. It's like a small mountain community that escalates with our two main patriarchs. So William Anderson Hatfield was born in 1842. That's Devil Ants. Devil Ants is a nickname he got by his mom. There's a story that when he was a little kid, like 10, he tracked a bear through the woods, and by the time he got to it, he had dropped his bullets and he couldn't kill it. So he was so mad, he kicked it. And the bear went running up into a tree, and he sat at the bottom of the tree for like 2 days until his family found him because he didn't want to leave because he was very stubborn.
Wow.
So Devilance is also Kevin Costner, if you want to picture that. Yeah.
Okay.
He married a woman named Levice Chafin in 1861, and they would go on to have 13 children. So there's a lot of kids in this story as well. And then Randolph Randall McCoy is a little bit older. He was born in 1825. He did marry his first cousin, Sarah Sally McCoy, and they would have 17 children.
What is it about being poor and having a lot of children? I don't get how the two are correlated.
Well, it's a couple things. It's like one, you don't have access to birth control, so you don't have a way to not have a baby if you want to not have one. And then also like the kids, the especially in this time and in the past, I mean more so than now, like a lot of kids died in when they were little. So that was like a part of life. Like a lot of kids died in infancy, a lot of kids died when they were toddlers. There was like disease, they would get lost. And you just needed the kids to work on the farm. So you're just having more kids.
Do you remember how they would do abortions back in the day from the Dahmer Party episode?
Just no, being on a horse.
No, because during the Donner Party fiasco, a lot of women would just like get pregnant on the trail, and like that was the worst possible time to get pregnant because
Mm-hmm.
you're on a trail and there's no medical anything around. And so what they would do is they just find the biggest, strongest guy and put the lady on his lap, and he'd just have to shake his legs like really, really hard, and that would apparently induce the abortion. So it wasn't really scientific, but it apparently worked.
Yeah, and I do remember from that they were like they wanted to do that because they were like, I can't have another baby. Like I can't have a baby on this thing. And like, no way.
Yeah, in a
And then it was
wagon.
later. Yeah. Oh God,
Yeah.
terrible. So there's a tons of kids in this story. In the miniseries, there are kids around, but there aren't like tons of kids. But like in real life, like it's like grandkids are the same age as the kids. Like it's just tons of people constantly having babies. So it's April 1861 and the Civil War begins.
April 18th.
So
Yep.
thank you, fact
Yeah,
check. So
that tracks.
you would think it was like 100% Confederate there. It's not 100%. There's a little bit of tension, a little bit of back and forth. But Devilance and Randall both joined the Confederate Army. Devilance,
Sorry, your point was that you would think that West Virginia and Kentucky are full of
yes.
Confederate. Okay.
I mean, I would. I'm stereotyping them.
You are stereotyping there a little bit.
Yeah.
Humans are
Um,
diverse.
so Devilance actually deserts and goes back to his family. That's not part of why there is a feud, but it is interesting that Devilance deserts, and he is going to be one of the Hatfields are a lot more they have a lot more money than the McCoys. They have like a timber business, they do bootlegging, and the Hatfields are more well off than the McCoys are. And there's a few instances that could have started the feud. So the feud starts officially after the Civil War. Randall's brother Harmon McCoy was a Union soldier. So he did fight for the North. He was injured in the war a bunch and was sent home in December 1864. So Harmon gets sent home back to this area, and everyone's pissed because he was a Union soldier, essentially. And the Hatfields are like, we're going to kill him. He was a Union soldier. So he goes home. And his family's like, oh my God, we missed you. We're so happy you're here. You're injured. What can we do? And within a week, he has to go hide because the Hatfields are going after him. And he goes and hides in the woods. They end up finding him because of footprints in the snow, because it's like January in the mountains. And crazy Uncle Jim, who is Devilance's uncle, he kills him. So he kills Randall's brother Harmon in 1865, leaving his wife widowed, and she has a bunch of kids that we're going to talk about later.
Okay.
So that's an instigating thing for sure.
That was the start. The start was the Union Confederate divide, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes. And then just like this one guy happened to be a McCoy and they killed him, Harmon. So 13 years later, in 1878, there's an issue with hogs. So razorback hogs are just a big part of life out there. They're like what you get your food from, all that. You would generally let them wander around and then pick them up when it was time to like slaughter them, because like they would just go into the woods and eat and to kind of take care of themselves. And you would mark your hogs by cutting their ears. So it'd be like, oh, the Pinheiro cut is like 2 cuts in the ear of this hog. That's how you know it's mine. But that got confusing because there's only so many ways to do that. And like people would get them confused all the time. And Randall's hogs go missing and he goes looking for them. And Devilance's cousin Floyd says they are his. So now there's two people fighting over these hogs that were just kind of like wandering in the woods. And it ends up going to court. And a lot of stuff goes to court in this story also. So they do try to like be litigious and solve things that way. But the problem is like the justice of the peace is a Hatfield. Like this is all the people that live here, you know? And so like literally the jury is half Hatfields, half McCoys
There's so many relatives.
because there's so many of them. Yeah. And then there's a split because one of the McCoys works for Devil Anse at his like timber place, and a man named Bill Stanton, who works for Devil Anse as well, testifies that the hogs do belong to Floyd Hatfield. So Floyd wins, and Randall McCoy has to pay all the legal fees, so he's pissed. Bill Stanton, who is the one who kind of swayed the jury to the Hatfield side, isn't long for this world. Randall's sons, Sam and Paris, kill him in 1880, and they claim self-defense and they get off. But it was because of the hogs.
Just do whatever you want.
Yeah,
It's the
they
Wild
chase him into the
West.
woods and shoot him. Yeah. So there are some people that I haven't mentioned that I won't really mention in this story, but one of them is the McCoys do have a lawyer in their family. His last name is Klein. He's in a lot of these stories, kind of like as like the person who's a little more educated. So he helps the McCoys get legal justice. He also happened to have inherited some land from his father and ended up having to give it to Devil Anse because of like threats and like other things. So he also has like a personal vendetta against the Hatfields.
Makes
So they
sense.
have this like lawyer on their side. So now everyone's like really mad because like the hog thing, Harmon's dead, tensions are up, and then a third thing happens. John Z. Hatfield, who's Devil Anse's oldest son, is a bit of a philanderer. It's actually like not the end of the world to have sex before marriage. There's like saloons with sex workers. Everyone knows it. It's not puritanical, you know, it's just like kind of wild. And they go to a party. They go to all these like community events together. And at this party, John Z sees Randall McCoy's daughter, Rosanna, like potentially for the first time, but that can't be true because there's like everyone lives so close to each other. I'm sure he knew she existed, but he like sees her and like he like likes her for the first time. She's a little bit older, she's very pretty, and they hook up and they want to get married. Randall McCoy is like absolutely no, and he disowns her and he never talks to her again.
Wait, what's her name again?
Rosanna, Rosanna McCoy. She's very pretty. You can
You look.
there's a picture of her.
Let's see.
Did you find her?
Yeah, I mean, look. Uh, Beauty standards change over time. I would
God, she's
assume
pretty.
she she kind of looks like John Wayne Gacy.
She does not. For fuck's sake, Fars. She's very pretty. I'll put the
Okay.
picture on the internet. But
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, the people that played her are
she's very
exceptionally
pretty.
pretty. Like, I don't know who this is. Hatfield and McCoy's. This is a 2012 movie,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
Lindsay Pulsifer something plays. I mean, she's very pretty. I mean, I don't think this woman is. Anyways, whatever. Different standards.
Fine. Fine. I think she's pretty. Doesn't matter.
I'm a better judge of
And
this.
no. But and then so anyway, this is the red flag. They literally say in feud, this is a red flag of the whole feud, is because Randall is so willing to never talk to her again. He's like, you're my daughter. You were my favorite. I loved you so much. I will never talk to you again. In the show, Bill Paxton takes her hope chest. You know what a hope chest is?
No. I'm
It's
not
like
gonna guess.
if you have a daughter in the past, I don't know if people do it now, but literally it's like a wooden chest and you put things in it for her for when she gets married. Like you make as she's growing up, you make like embroidered napkins for her and you find like special dishes and special things and you put it in there that she can take with her to start her married life.
That's
If
really
you
cool.
like,
We should
it's
do
sweet.
that. Like, that should be a continuation.
I have a plastic container filled with stuff from when Obama was running for president for the kids.
Yeah, that's
Like
stuff
the
like that. That's really
New
cool.
York Times and all that. Yeah. So anyway, in the show, Bill Paxton takes her hope chest and destroys it in the rain, and it's very dramatic. He's like very dramatic in this movie. So I don't know if he really did that, but anyway, he said, "No, Rosanna, like, you are out of my life." So Devil Anse lets Rosanna stay with them on the West Virginia side of the tug. While they aren't married yet, Rosanna does get pregnant. And Johnsy is a bootlegger of moonshine, so it's not illegal to have alcohol now. It's not like prohibition, but it's illegal to make it and sell it without telling the IRS, essentially. They want it needs to be like a legitimate business. So Rosanna is torn. She goes home. She's pregnant. She's upset. Her dad doesn't want to talk to her. She's trying to figure out what to do. And John Z comes to get her because they do love each other. John Z comes to get her, and her brothers try to arrest him because they have a bootlegging warrant against him in West Virginia. So they try to arrest him and they take him to a place like they're going to arrest him, put him into jail. And Rosanna, despite being very pregnant, she steals a horse from a neighbor and rides to the Hatfields to tell them that John Z is being taken away, and they go and save him. So this is even more betrayal to her family because she like left her house and like told them
Yeah.
that. But she moves in with her aunt instead of moving back in with her family or with John Z. She has the baby. Her name's Sarah Elizabeth. She dies before her first birthday. So unfortunately, the baby dies. John Z does love her and tries to go back to her, but she, feels like she's broken. Then, there's a terrible story because John Z's like still kind of a philanderer, and he's been spending time with a sex worker to kind of like heal his broken heart, and his family's super pissed, and they find, I mean, this isn't in the movie, but they find this sex worker hanging in the woods. They hanged her naked with a dress over her face, and she was hanging for 2 days before someone found her. So someone got rid of her so that John Z would stop paying so much time with her, which is horrifying. So Rosanna's heartbroken. John Z actually ends up marrying her cousin Nancy, so another McCoy. So John Z marries Nancy McCoy, and even in the book Feud, they say that he loved her less. Like he just didn't love her as much as he loved Rosanna.
Yeah, there's Nancy in
Yeah.
this picture.
hmm Nancy is the daughter of Harmon, the Union soldier who was killed in the beginning.
Right.
So it's like, Nancy, what are you doing? In the movie, she's portrayed as being kind of awful, but you're like, you're not only betraying your family by marrying a Hatfield, but you're also marrying the person that you know your cousin loves. So Nancy has a whole thing. So Rosanna eventually just dies of being sad. She dies. A couple women in the story just die of being sad. So here's where things start getting a little bit crazy, and we get into like the real escalation of the feud. So there are states issues because they're in different states. So we're like, whose jurisdiction is this? Like I can see across the tug, but it's a different state. But generally, the Hatfields and McCoys have the same political views. So when there is a big election, like in the area, they're usually on the same side of the election. The voting in this time is very public. It's obviously just men, but you like go to an all day long event, and they say like everyone who wants this person to win, stand over here, raise your hand. This person, stand over here, raise your hand. Like it's not private. You're like raising your hand to say that. And so it's kind of a fun day. Like everyone comes, you bring your family, there's food, there's music, and there's a lot of whiskey. So a lot of this like moonshine whiskey. It involves, like I said, apples, and you like ferment them in the woods, and you like heat it up and boil it and like let it sit for a while. And so now it's 1882, and there's an election. So one of these big election parties, it's in Kentucky, and everyone's there. All of our main characters are there. Someone brings even more whiskey than usual, and they bring corn whiskey, and it's like the thing is, if you mix corn and apple whiskey, like you're fucked. It's like much worse for you to like drink both of them.
Wait, you get just drunk faster?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So Devil Anse has a brother, Ellison, who had a baby with their cousin. I don't know anything about her, but like he has this baby. She's not in the picture. He has the baby, or not the baby, he's like a young man. Their son, Cotton Top, is important later in this story. Cotton Top was slow and possibly albino, but either way, he was very blonde, and that's why they call him Cotton Top. Get it? Because he's like white
Makes
hair.
sense.
Yeah. So it's election day. Ellison gets in a fight with some of the McCoys and is stabbed over 20 times and then shot. So they just got in this like drunken brawl over whatever, and the three McCoy boys, Tolbert, Farmer, spelled with a PH, and Bud, they are taken away by the law. The Hatfields are the cops in this area in Kentucky. So they take the boys to Pikeville. And I say boys, but they're not boys. Tolbert already has kids, like they're just like young men. And they take him to Pikeville in Kentucky. Ellison isn't dead yet. He's been shot once and stabbed 20 times, but he's not dead. And on the way over to put them in jail in Kentucky, Devil Anse and a posse stop them, and they're like, give them to us. Like, screw all the paperwork. We're going to take them to West Virginia and tie them up. And if Ellison dies, then they die. Like, we're going to do this vigilante justice. If he dies, then all three of these boys are going to die. They kind of like, even though they're like kind of the Hatfields are the law on the Kentucky side, he's like, we're taking them over to West Virginia.
I kind of love this.
It's like a lot. So they take the boys, they tie him up in an abandoned schoolhouse, and they're waiting to see if Ellison dies. So they're like, if he dies, you die, FYI, but they're just waiting for the news. And he's like definitely gonna die because he was stabbed so many times and shot.
Yeah, they're probably hoping that like they're
Yeah.
able to kill this guy.
So the boys are tied up in this abandoned schoolhouse. Poor Sarah, their mom, and Mary, who's Tolbert's wife, they come to the schoolhouse and they cry and they pray and they beg for the freedom. And the Hatfields are like, no, if Allison dies, they die. Allison dies, spoiler alert, from all the stuff. And all three McCoys are walked like a mile into the woods, tied to trees and shot. So the shooters are basically every single Hatfield. John Z's there, Devil Anse is there, Cotton Top, Cal, a guy named Skunk Hair because he had a big shock of white hair. They're all there and they all just like shoot at the same time. Poor Mary, who's Tolbert's wife, just dies of being sad. So now, I mean, can you imagine three of her sons, Sarah's sons, were just like killed in this like vigilante thing. So she has that had the 17 children, three of them are dead from this. Everyone's like super, upset and obviously, but now the McCoys want revenge for this revenge killing. And there's a man that comes to town who's a bounty hunter, and his name is Bad Frank Phillips.
Cool
So
name.
Bad Frank, yeah. The governor of Kentucky, Simon Bucker, appoints him a special sheriff, and Bad Frank comes to town to help the McCoys get the Hatfields for this vigilante murder.
Who
Um,
cares? Like, all they're just two groups of serial killers. Like, who's keeping count at this point? Just
um,
assume that all your family members are gonna die, and then you're going to kill theirs. Like, what?
well, everyone, I mean, like basically the governor, his stance is like, you're giving us a bad name. Like some people would you get caught in the crosshairs. He's like, you guys have to cut it out. You can't just have like a violent area where you kill each other. Like,
It's probably not good for tourism.
yeah, you just can't. So Bad Frank, the first McCoy he kills is Skunk Hair, or the first Hatfield he kills is Skunk Hair because he's the guy who has like that like shock of white hair. That's why he's called that. And he scalps him and brings his scalp to prove that he's dead, which is gross and also makes sense because he has special hair. So now other things are happening. John Z and Nancy are married. Nancy's brother Jackson gets into a drunken fight with a mailman and kills him. Just no one knows why. Got in a fight. So now there's a bounty on Jackson McCoy's head, and he goes and lives with Nancy and John Z. And John Z's like doesn't love this. He's an outlaw McCoy at his house, and he tells his brothers that Jackson is there, and they come and get him. They chase him across the tug and they shoot him. So now Nancy's mad because her husband told his family where her brother was, but like, what did you think was going to happen, Nancy? You're married to a Hatfield in the middle of this. And so she starts telling Bad Frank things, and they end up hooking up. Nancy has a couple of kids with Bad Frank while he's married to someone else and while she's married to John Z, but eventually they do get married. And I just wrote, Nancy, for fuck's sake, like, Beijing girl. So now the Hatfields are being hunted by the McCoys and Bad Frank for the murder of the three McCoy boys. And they're pissed. So the Hatfields do another horrible thing. On January 1st, 1888, they ambush the McCoy house while everybody is sleeping. This is called the New Year's Night Massacre. Randall McCoy runs. His wife Sarah is like, run. They're after you. They want to kill you because you're the man. You just run and go. So Randall McCoy runs out the back and no one sees him leave. There's a couple other people in the house. There's a lot of kids in the house. There's Alifair is the oldest daughter. She's 27, but she's there to like help take care of all the kids. Tolbert's son is there. So one of the men who died, his son's there. Lots of other kids. Crazy Uncle Jim Hatfield, who killed Harmon, throws Molotov cocktails into the house, and now the house is on fire and it's full of women and children. One of the Hatfields, Cap, I've said his name a couple times, but he's essentially the meanest Hatfield, and he injured his eye in like a gun thing when he was a kid, so he has like one milky eye. And when he died in 1930, they found a bullet next to his brain, which they think maybe made him like so super aggressive. But Cap is there. All the Hatfields are there. They're shooting at the house. The house is now on fire. The women have buttermilk and a little bit of water, but they can't put the fire out.
Wait, this is
Cap,
the 1870s, isn't it?
it's 1888.
Okay, that makes sense. That he died in 1930. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The women are trying to put the fire out. They can't do it. Cal McCoy, goes to the attic and tries to shoot from there. They had actually cut like holes in the attic wall to shoot out of, like a fortress, like a medieval fortress, even though it's a one-room cabin, if something does happen. So he's shooting out there. The house is filled with smoke. And Alifair, the oldest daughter, takes the children and runs from the house. They run up the back. Cap and Cotton Top see them, and Cap yells to Cotton Top to shoot her, and Cotton Top shoots her and kills her. So Alifair dies, and the girls run and hide in the woods. They hide for the whole night. They're going to end up with like frostbite injuries, but they get out. In the book, it says that Alifair lives long enough to say it was Cap and no one else who shot her when asked. I don't know if that's true, but if it is true, it sounds like she said it to be very nice because Cotton Top did shoot her, but Cap told him to, and Cotton Top was like not all there.
Right. Right.
So that's super unfair. Cal, the McCoy boy, leaves the house. He's also killed. This is like Sarah has had so many bad days in this. So Sarah McCoy, the mom, is freaking out. She leaves the house. She knows Alifair is dead. She knows Cal is dead. She knows it's all because her 3 boys are dead. And Crazy Uncle Jim hits her with his rifle, and she passes out. She survives, but she's like laying in the snow all night because they have like attacked and burned down their house. That's horrifying. And now they have to get the Hatfields for doing this to the McCoys. So it's just like back and forth, back and forth. Between 1880 and 1891, like the height of the feud, over a dozen people died of the two families. So it's like a lot of people are dying because of this. There's a little battle called the Battle of Grapevine Creek to get the Hatfields arrested for the murder, and that involves more like actual law enforcement because the governor is really pissed. He's like, stop doing this. So they do go to trial, and on August 24th, 1888, 8 of the Hatfields and some of their co-conspirators are indicted for murder. It includes Cap, Johnsy, Robert and Elliot Hatfield, Ellison Mounts, French Ellis, Charles Giuseppe, and Thomas Chambers. Most of them get life in prison, which doesn't mean life because they get out, in a couple of years. Johnsy gets married 4 more times after the story ends. So like a lot of them get to go out and live their lives. But Cotton Top gets sentenced to die because he's the one that killed Alifair. So this is a big deal. Like this is the thing that's in the paper. People come from all over. There's like thousands of people that come to watch this poor boy get hanged.
He's the one who's not all there.
Yes. And it's a big deal. Like people get hanged all the time in this area, but nobody had officially been hanged by the government in 40 years, and it would never happen again after this because it was just so awful. So poor Cotton Top is taken to the gallows on a wagon, sitting on top of his own coffin. They take him from the jail. Yeah, from the jail to the gallows. There's a picture. There's like one photograph of it. They string him up. His last words are, "The Hatfields made me do it." And he is a Hatfield. That's the last thing he yells because he knows that like Cap told him to do it and he didn't really know what was going on and he killed Alifair. So he's hanged. It's in the paper, all these things. And this is like sort of the end because it was so awful.
What was so awful about it? Was it did his neck not break?
No, not like the hanging itself, but like the fact that after this murder of like women and children and they like attacked and burned down the McCoy house, that like after that, the justice was like hanging a person who was not all there. It just like got gross, People were just like upset, and it's sort of the spot in the miniseries as well where they're like, it kind of gets boring after this because they kind of are like, whoa, we really have done a lot. We should calm down. Like people are like need to recover. Like the McCoys need to rebuild their house. Like the Hatfields are all in jail. Like, they need to like recover. Everyone is tired. Most of the aggressors are in prison or dead, and so that's how it kind of like peters out. So the highlights were those like the boys being killed in the woods, and then the McCoy house being burnt down, and the 2 men lived for a long time. Devil Anse doesn't die until 1921. He dies at the age of 81 of pneumonia. Randall dies at 88 after getting burned from a cooking fire. So he doesn't even die of old age. He dies of burns. In the miniseries, there's like this scene that's incredible where Bill Paxton now has a white beard and white hair, and he's like in his PJs and he's burning a bunch of like newspapers and pictures of his family and drinking whiskey, and it gets out of control, and that's how his house burns down. But everything else is it's a cooking fire. But he dies like after a fire. And today, there's still Hatfields and McCoys living in the same place. Like there's still people there. There have been a few public truces. Most recently, in 2003, in the wake of 9/11, Rio Hatfield, who's one of the Hatfields there, and some McCoys signed a truce along with 60 members of both families. And this is the quote they say when they are signing the truce. They say, "We ask by God's grace and love that we forever be remembered as those that bound together the hearts of two families to form a family of freedom in America. We're not saying that you don't have to fight, because sometimes you do have to fight, but you don't have to fight forever."
That's nice.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm sorry. So 9/11 is what brought this to a
Yep.
conclusion.
Yeah, because they were like, we can't be fighting inside America. We have enemies. And I guess, I mean, it could be under any of the world wars. Whatever, they did it.
Yeah. There's been a lot of other situations where America's been attacked. Pearl Harbor is a big one.
I know. I don't know. That's what they did. That's what they did most recently.
Hey, so where do I find the miniseries? What is that on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's called Hatfields and McCoys, 3 episodes.
That's
It's fun. A lot of
Yeah.
shooting, a lot of great accents.
I love that stuff so much. I think the longer I've been in Texas, moving back, the more into it I've gotten. It's old timey. I was thinking like when you were talking, I was like, they should create a new category of serial killers, which is like families. Like it's not like one person necessarily killing people in succession. It's like this one family just had this like but these two families had this bloodlust, and they really executed on it.
Yeah, so many people died. And so many people were like permanently injured, and it's like a time when, it's and during the Civil War, if they shot you in the leg, they cut off your leg and you probably died from blood loss.
Yeah.
It's not like the height of medicine either. So a lot of people, yeah, just getting hurt and hurting each other because their feelings are hurt because, they think they were betrayed in some way. It's like when you tell someone to like calm down because they're like, that guy said something to me and like won't calm down. And you're like, who cares? But like escalated times a bajillion.
How did you come up with Hatfield and McCoys? Like, what was the impetus for that?
I think oh gosh, I don't remember. I was thinking about, I don't even know. What did I do last week? I think I was just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where they came from. I have like a list of ideas and I like, kind of go through it sometimes and then I'll be like, oh, what about this? And then I just whatever. So I started this 2 weeks ago because I had to read a book and watch a miniseries.
So, what's the red flag?
Well, I think in the book they specifically say the red flag is when Randall McCoy disowned his daughter for being with Johnsy, like that was like a no turning back point. And it's like the red flag is like these these perceived injustices, some of them obviously are real because people died, like to escalate to just madness. So you just like get so angry that you can't do anything but like avenge it. And that's like the red flag. Also, like if you're a McCoy, don't marry Hatfields.
Yeah.
Just don't. Like
I was
just
gonna say like that's probably the biggest takeaway for me is like if your family's in a feud and
yeah.
you know that they kill each other regularly,
Yeah.
why pour gas on that?
Like, oh my God, like Romeo and Juliet. Of
Exactly.
course you're both gonna die, you idiots.
Yeah,
Don't do
exactly.
that. There's tons of other people.
Wild stuff.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and transition us